People flock to church on Ash Wednesday, even though technically it's not a holy day of obligation. What explains this? Over the years, I've developed 3 theories to explain this surge in church attendance. The first is what I call the bobblehead doll theory of Ash Wednesday. One of the most popular days to attend a baseball game is when the team gives away a bobblehead doll. People love free stuff that you can only get once a year, including ashes. Second is what I call the I voted sticker theory of Ash Wednesday. People like to show others they've engaged in some virtuous activity, such as wearing an I voted sticker on election day. And wearing ashes on your forehead shows that you have been to church. Third, and most importantly, is the we have sinned theory of Ash Wednesday. Showing weakness for most of us is uncomfortable. We often say things are fine, even when our lives might be a mess. But we know that things aren't perfect. Individually and collectively, we know that we are often not the people God calls us to be. Ash Wednesday and the season of Lent is a special time to acknowledge our need for God's mercy. In the previous video, Father Jerry described some of the challenges we face in our world today. They are immense. We cannot do it alone, but we do not have to do it alone. We are focusing in this Lenten retreat on the theme of hope. The author Eric Barker describes hope as that brilliant, shining beacon of light that flickers at the end of a tunnel, like a firefly that's had one too many energy drinks. The theological virtue of hope flows from the conviction that God is at work in our lives and in the world. It is deeper than optimism. We can grow in hope this Lenten season by focusing on God's story and how that intersects with our stories. My name is Father Michael Rossmann. I'm a Jesuit priest and doctoral student at the Gregorian University, and I will hopefully finish my dissertation before the end of this Lent. In the subsequent videos of this Lenten retreat, others will focus on some particular gospel scenes and invite you to make connections with your lives. These reflections will be rooted in the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola. For St. Ignatius, the stories of the Bible are our stories. If we enter into them, if we walk with Jesus, then we will come to know, love, and follow him more and more. And we'll also get to know ourselves much better in the process. We grow as Christ's companions during the spiritual exercises primarily through a method of prayer called Ignatian contemplation. All prayer is contemplative, but Ignatian contemplation is a type of prayer in which one's imagination plays a prominent role. Though Ignatius didn't invent this kind of prayer, he was the one who popularized it by giving it center stage in his spiritual exercises. In Ignatian contemplation, we compose the place by imagining ourselves in a scene from the Bible and then taking part in it. It's a way of allowing God to speak to us through our imagination. In the videos that follow in this Lenten retreat, the other speakers will focus on particular scenes and invite you to engage in this type of prayer. If you are unfamiliar with praying with your imagination, I recognize that it may initially sound strange. You might ask, is everything you imagine supposed to be God speaking to you? Isn't that what crazy people think? But God can speak to us through Scripture, the sacraments, daily experiences, and our relationships with other people. And the imagination is similarly a gift from God and an avenue by which God can speak to us. This doesn't mean that everything we imagine is coming directly from God, but at least at times, God can use our imagination to communicate with us. Imaginative prayer helps us develop a unique and personal relationship with Jesus Christ. We look at Christ's face and listen to the way he speaks. We notice how people respond to him. These imaginative details lead us to know Jesus as more than a name or an historical figure in a book. He's a living person in our lives. What we ask for in our prayer as we walk alongside Jesus is an interior, heartfelt knowledge of the Lord, a deepened love for him, and a more generous following of him. Some of you may have heard the song Day by Day from the musical Godspell, in which they pray for three things: to see thee more clearly, to love thee more dearly, and to follow thee more nearly. Growing in relationship is what this time is about. As we get to know Jesus more and more, we cannot help but love him, which leads us then to follow him. Ultimately, his life, his story, more and more becomes our story. The scripture scholar N.T. Wright has written that hope is not a feeling, it is a virtue. You have to practice it, like a difficult piece on the violin or a tricky shot at tennis. You practice the virtue of hope through worship and prayer, through invoking the one God, through reading and reimagining the scriptural story, and through consciously holding the unknown future within the unshakable divine promises. We hope that this Lent is a time when you can practice this virtue by entering into prayer and connecting your story with God's story. The hope that comes from union with God is far greater than social approval and much better than any giveaway, even a bobblehead doll.